Hello and welcome into the Take the North podcast along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Dan and I out at Haugh again as the Bears continue to get ready for the Minnesota Vikings. The Bears trying to put out their 7-game losing streak. Same story out here at the Haugh, but another crack at the Minnesota Vikings, Dan, this time in that beautiful stadium in Minnesota. How you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We're getting ready to make a road trip. Monday night game. We were talking in the media room today, Grote, about how we're done with the Sunday to Sunday rhythm of the Bears' weekly schedule here. We're going to go Monday to Sunday to Thursday to Sunday, and then we're going to be right into the off season just like that. And so, yeah, let's go. Let's keep plowing through these games until we can get to that finish line.
Yeah, no, it was funny too listening to Cole Kmet speaking about here they are, another primetime game, Monday Night Football for the world to see. And somebody, of course, asked the question of, you guys get a little bit more pumped up for that. You guys got more is at stake. You want to show the world what you're all about. And Cole was like, look, we've been trying to show the world what we're all about the last 7 weeks, man. Doesn't matter what channel we're on. It doesn't matter whether it's national. Some of these regional fourth string broadcaster games have been pretty embarrassing as well. So as we've been saying for the last 7 weeks, the Bears need a win. And let's start to look at some of the keys for that as we get into our opening drive here now on Take the North.
It's time for the opening drive.
Danny boy, what you got for us here, man?
Yeah, so we've done this the last 2 weeks because the games now have become less consequential. We're just getting the game preview out of the way right up front on the Take the North podcast here this week. And so we're going to look into the 3 things to watch Bears Vikings Monday Night Football. And the first thing, Grote, is the attention paid to Justin Jefferson. This was a huge storyline 3 weeks ago when the Bears played the Vikings. We said, let's watch Justin Jefferson against Jalen Johnson. And guess what? The Bears forgot to watch Aaron Jones and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison enough. And all 3 of those guys went over 100 yards. Aaron Jones, I think I can pull it up for you really quick here.
106 yards and a touchdown.
So he had 106 and a touchdown. Jordan Addison, 162 yards and a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson, 114 yards. And, of course, the catches in overtime that set up the walk-off field goal. The Bears have to find that balance of being able to slow down Justin Jefferson and pay him the proper amount of respect without forgetting that there is also a bunch of other playmakers on this team that can hurt them. Something that Eric Washington talked about Friday afternoon at Haugh about how to make that happen. Here's some thoughts from Big E on that challenge.
Player, but they have a balanced offense. I mean, they have other players that can really hurt you, the tight end position, the complementary receivers. And so clearly he's a person that can take the roof off, that can blow the top off the coverage, that can work in the underneath area. But at the same time, you can't sell out everything that you're doing to try and affect one player and then compromise what you have to do to actually get off the field and win a football game.
Well said, Grote. Well said. Anything to add?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's pretty perfect. And I like all those guys that you mentioned. Not only did they have big games, but they also had big individual plays. Like Jordan Addison had a 69-yard play. Aaron Jones had a 41-yard play. Sam Darnold was 350. TJ Hawkinson, that killer 34-yard play, I believe, that came in the fourth quarter. So they were making just an immaculate play after play in that game, even though the thing got very interesting, obviously.
Yeah, big plays have been a problem for this defense here recently, particularly last week against San Francisco. The second thing we've got to watch Monday night, Grote, is can the Bears get a run game going? The Vikings still have the league's second best run defense, but it's been a little leaky as of late. They've given up a total of 312 rushing yards in their last 2 games, both wins against the Cardinals and the Falcons, but they have not been on the right track in terms of stopping the run. So what does that mean for the Bears? Where is the health of their backfield? What does it mean to getting something going early in the game that maybe takes a little bit of pressure off of Caleb Williams as he goes into a second meeting with Brian Flores and that Vikings defense? It's going to be really fascinating to watch how the sequel of this chess match unfolds. Thomas Brown against Brian Flores, Caleb Williams against that Vikings defense. And what does the Bears running game do to help make that a little bit easier?
Right. And, still a little bit of concern over DeAndre Swift and whether or not he is going to be ready to go for the Bears. Same deal with Roshan Johnson. And I think Travis Homer is showing up as a full participant on the injury report. But yeah, my God, it would be so nice to see the Bears do what teams have been doing to them, and that is to gash them in the run game. So yeah, if they can take advantage of that would look very nice. What else you got for
Third
us?
thing to watch, the guy in the 15 jersey, Rome Odunze. We're 5 days removed from that brutal loss in Santa Clara, California, and I found the silver lining. It was Rome Odunze. 2 touchdown catches, his second and third of his career from Caleb Williams in the second half of that football game. Continues to show the chemistry that's building with the quarterback, 2 rookies who expect to play with each other for a long time, making their way in this league together. That first touchdown catch, thing of beauty. That's a trust throw that Caleb Williams makes, and it's a reward that Rome Odunze gives him going up over Travarius Ward, getting his feet down and making that play. I think you'd agree with me that Rome Odunze continues to be a bright spot in this very glum season, and his new offensive coordinator, longtime receivers coach, Chris Beatty, had a lot to say this afternoon about just how good Rome has been and where he's headed, starting with a question about that touchdown catch that he had. Here's some of Chris Beatty.
What went wrong for a second on the first touchdown catch you had from the receiver's coach's lens? What did you zero in on that really caught your eye in that whole sequence from the route to the catch to the finish?
Yeah, so one, thought it was a great release. He wins at the line of scrimmage. Then he's used speed to be able to create some separation. It was a great throw there by Caleb. But if everybody remembers back during training camp where he stepped out of bounds at the end, we talked a ton about having awareness in the back of the end zone. That's something that we work on quite a bit as far as, whether it's on the sideline or the back of the end zone, is having awareness to get our feet in bounds and a foot drag. And those things both showed up in that situation. Rome is special, in the fact that he's a special player, but he's also special as a person. Everything that you coach, he takes in. He takes notes. Like if you ever saw his notebook, it looks like a college kid that's in a, whatever kind of business class or something like that. He takes notes on everything. And so as a receiver coach, like you just asked, you respect that because he wants to learn from everybody, whether it's Keenan talking, DJ talking, I'm talking, whoever it is, Thomas in the front, he's taking notes on everything.
When a receiver is quarterback friendly, how does that differ from just being good?
There's an attention to detail in being friendly to the quarterback, and being able to understand angles and leverage. Those things, like a lot of times you just run routes and that stuff shows up, and you're really good. And that's part of it. And he's really good. So I don't want to sit back and say, I coached him and made him really good. Jamarcus did a great job with him in college. But I think a lot of times all these receivers, they have a knack of being able to be friendly to the quarterback by understanding how do I post the guy up? How do I create an angle or leverage to make myself open when a normal receiver might not be able to do that?
Some cool technical talk there from Chris Beatty, Grote, and it was very sincere, I think, and genuine with how he feels about Rome and how things have gone here, obviously, for the first season together.
Yeah, I take it seriously when, we have to, I'll always measure how prone to hyperbole a coach might be, but I've not necessarily noticed that with Chris Beatty. But I think it's very interesting when he says that he is so ahead of where other receivers that he's worked with, like DJ Moore, and bringing up Keenan Allen's name ahead of guys like that relative to being a rookie. So it sort of regenerated, and I guess what he did last week too, Rome Odunze, regenerated my excitement and the promise in Rome Odunze, because it's not been a splashy year for him. And there's been some very quiet games where you're like, wait a minute, why aren't we, why isn't there more scrutiny on Rome Odunze, considering where he was drafted and how important he is? But it's good to continue to hear the testimonials. Obviously, like to continue to see it more and see him become that completely over the top quarterback friendly wide receiver that everybody's saying he can be.
Yeah, and we'll see what he does on Monday night. I think that leads us right into our predictions. Only 4 of these left here. Can we get one right here?
What does getting it right mean?
Picking the winner correctly. I failed so miserably last week that I'm
yeah. All right. Well, just for that, Dan, I'll go first. I'll let you think about it a little bit more here. Although you probably already have I'm gonna say that no, the losing streak will continue. I am sorry. I just don't see a way. I really don't. I don't. Some based on what we saw at Soldier Field, and the loud factor will be real. And I think that they will be well coached into not taking the Bears lightly. I think the Minnesota Vikings win this game over the Bears 28-14.
I'm not that far off from you. I've got Vikings 27, Bears 16. That was the score at Soldier Field before the Bears mounted that late comeback in the last 2 minutes to force overtime. The Vikings are a good football team. The Bears are not. It doesn't need to go much deeper than that. End of story. Losing streak hits 8. Vikings are headed to the playoffs. The Bears are headed into a coaching search. Adam Stadzinski, jump in.
Vikings 30, Bears 10. Later, guys.
So young, so angry.
This is where we've gotten to in this lovely season, Grote. So that's
I know.
That's Bears Vikings right there in a nutshell.
Well, another place that we have gotten to is the big picture stuff. And you wrote a tremendous article for the Chicago Tribune. It is out now. You can find it online. You could find it on the actual paper if you do it that way as well. And it is about Ryan Poles and his future, and the good and the bad that Ryan Poles has done for this organization. And I will just start off by saying that I am stunned to think that we are at this point with Ryan Poles, just considering what I thought looked like everything was heading in a really positive direction for Ryan Poles at the beginning of the season. Imperfect for sure, but now he is overseeing a roster that had expectations, that has lost 7 in a row, and quite frankly has looked horrendous doing it. And as you pointed out in your article, he is the one that hired Matt Eberflus. He is the one that oversaw the hiring of Shane Waldron. That is on his resume. And another thing too that you brought up, Dan, in that article, which was just sort of stunning to me and enlightening and eye-opening, is the fact that according to some of the sources that you have, and correct me if I get any of this wrong with any of the words, because I know that that's important and plays a part here, that if the Bears had not hired Matt Eberflus away from Indianapolis to be their head coach, that Matt Eberflus was going to lose his job as the DC in Indianapolis.
Yeah, right. Like that'll make your jaw hit the floor and you realize where it led the Bears at a time where they had a very high stakes coaching decision to make. And guess what? Now they have another very high stakes coaching decision to make, probably even more high stakes because of the presence of Caleb Williams here and the current construct of this roster. And so now how do you go about getting this right? I think one of the things I said on 670 The Score on Friday afternoon is that there is undeniably a direction problem with his organization right now. You cannot dispute that when they've lost 7 straight. And as you mentioned, taken a season that had so much hope and optimism and expectation attached to it and bungled it as badly as they have to this point. They fired the head coach. They fired the offensive coordinator. They've lost 7 in a row. The rookie quarterback's development has been disrupted, not necessarily derailed, but certainly disrupted because of all that. And so now you've got to get this right. And so how are you going to do that? Well, what became really apparent to me, Grote, through the reporting of this story is that there are a lot of questions being asked from people outside of Haugh about what the direction inside of Haugh is and needs to be. And so I think that is almost a indirect order to George McCaskey and Kevin Warren that they understand that if you are going to get this hire right, that you're going to have to meet some of these head coaching candidates where they want to be met. And that's in terms of the power structure. It's in terms of the roster control. It's in terms of the long-term timelines that need to marry up. It's in terms of the vision you have. And so you better be prepared to have a very, very crystallized vision and presentation for the people that are coming to interview for your job. Because if not, there are going to be candidates that say, hey, thanks for reaching out. I'm going to explore some other opportunities, and maybe up the road we can talk again. But right now, this is one that's not for me.
Yeah. So does Kevin Warren need to do more in his support for Ryan Poles at this point? Not just say he's our guy, he's our general manager, but make sure that everybody knows that he's going to be around for a long time, or do you think Kevin Warren likes it the way it is, where there's this sort of ambiguity to exactly who is in power right now when it comes to hiring the head coach and subsequently personnel decisions?
It's a huge decision, and like, look, like there is the option, like the Bears did in 2018 with Ryan Pace, of saying, hey, we're going to give you a contract extension, whether you deserve it or not. We need to give you this because we're going to keep you on the job, and we want you to have matching timelines with the guy you're going to go out and hire, so you can create some of that compatibility. That's a risky move, without question. Just like it was a risky move 10 months ago to bring Matt Eberflus back for a season 3 when you had understood that his season 2 didn't go so well. 0-4 start, coaches leaving left and right from the building, firing more coaches at the end of the year, had 3 terrible blown leads and losses that you should have won, 10 losses, all those things. And you said, we're just going to look past all that and have faith that he's going to get it right in year 3. Well, he didn't. And then you had to let him go 12 years into year 3. And if you get to a similar position with Ryan next year, well, now you've ruined everything, and this rookie contract that is supposed to be the optimal window for you to strike when you've got a quarterback as talented as Caleb Williams is going to be expiring quicker than you want it to. And you're going to be rebooting again. And so look, like, you tell me, like, if you're in that chair upstairs, what is your approach to making sure the outside world feels confident in what you are selling them in terms of what this job can be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to look at every single, whether it is true or not, everything that if the outside world, excuse me, perceives about the way the Bears do business in any way, shape, or form in this building that you and I are in right now at Haugh. You have to debunk things like that. Like, quite frankly, Kevin Warren, as smooth as he is as a public speaker, he messed up a little bit by being very casual about Ryan Poles' role, calling him the point person, of course, and saying that he's our GM, but also completely hiccuping when it came down to who has final say on that. So I think that there's still time to get that message out there, but I think that has to be taken care of, because, like, you know how it works, Dan. Like, you and I know exactly what's going on. I'd like to think most of our listeners and viewers understand what's going on, but the outside world just picks up little pieces of it, aggregates it, and then it just becomes, oh, you don't want to go there, man. That's a mess over there. Man, the way they run, I got stories for you. And some of the stories are accurate and some of them are inaccurate. So I hope the Bears don't do business as usual. And I think I'd like to see them get some things out there in the public from Kevin Warren, maybe from George McCaskey, to talk more about the process that they're going through and why it would be good for you to be a head coach in Chicago at Haugh, other than it's the damn Bears and you have Caleb Williams.
No doubt. And what we can say with 100% certainty is there are very serious questions being asked intensely from the outside. And so now the Bears need to understand what those questions are, and they need to have answers for them when people start coming into their building or getting on their phone lines or getting on their Zoom conversation to start the talks about where this thing is going to head going forward. I said it earlier on Friday afternoon that is it reasonable to give Ryan Poles more rope? Sure. Is it understandable if they want to give him a second chance to hire a head coach? Absolutely. That would not be some outlier in the world of the NFL where a general manager will get a second crack at hiring a coach, but you can't do that just because you feel kind of sort of confident that it's going to work out.
Right.
You better be very meticulous and detailed and exhaustive and diligent in how you're putting together your plan to find the right person going forward. If you don't, you're just setting yourself up for failure, which this organization has done so many times. Keep in mind this, Grote, like, we'll go back to the last quarterback. They drafted the last quarterback before they hired the head coach and the general manager. And then they hired the head coach and the general manager before they replaced the team president. And now they're still in the process of unknotting those knots that they themselves tied, you know, and it's like they got the fork with the knot, and they're trying to get, like you're just constantly trying to create some smoothness to the process. And this is a huge opportunity to do that. You cannot squander it, because if you squander it, again, you've just set your organization up to be continually lost for another 10 to 15 to 20 years. Kevin Warren said himself, like, this is going to be a decision that sets the trajectory of the franchise for 15 to 20 years. Figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this. I'll go on record right now. My bottom line is on Ryan Poles, and obviously it's a static, it's an ongoing situation, a fluid situation, of course, depending on what happens in these games. But I don't think on the overall eliminating Ryan Poles from the organization, if the inevitable, not the inevitable, if he was to be fired, I just don't think that that's the answer at this point. I don't think that Ryan Poles has been egregiously bad. There are definitely big mistakes that he has made, but not to the point where you say you should be losing your job. Like, we're keeping an eye on him now, Dan. Like, everything you wrote was fair. Your sources were fantastic in that article, but I think at this point, it's too soon to say, yeah, Ryan Poles just can't do this job.
Unless you've identified it as a deterrent to actually getting the right head coach in here, and if you feel like, oh man, we've got 4 guys here that we feel like could really be the difference to taking this organization to the next level, and none of them want to come and work under the current structure that this is, well, then you've got to ask more serious questions. The names that are dangling out there, the Ben Johnsons, the Mike Vrabel, they're going to have to reach out to all those people in their camps and figure out what it is exactly that they're looking for, and then sort through all of that. And so it is a little bit messy. Once again, this is a situation where, there's already 3 openings. I would expect by January 8th, there's going to be 5 to 6 others, around the league. And so you start to play the game of musical chairs and competition for coaching candidates. And the Bears better walk out of there with a hire that they feel supremely confident can change everything that happened in 2024, because this year is an absolute fiasco and it can't be repeated ever again.
The conversation will continue. It is ongoing, and I'm sure we'll circle back to this on many episodes in the future. But let's get to our 2-minute drill here.
The 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill.
I had just one thing that I was just thinking about before I forget about it, and that is the conversation we had with Cole Kmet. One of the things he said, I was a little surprised to hear him say this, but he said that that Minnesota, that stadium there, beautiful stadium. He says it is his favorite stadium in the NFL, hands down. He loves playing there. But he also said that he loves the horn, the Vikings horn, Dan, which Bears fans hate the horn. And I'm just a little surprised that he likes the horn. He said he owned it. He's like, look, yeah, I'm a sucker for the horn. So he likes the horn. I was like, yeah. You heard lots of that in your years there, but it is a beautiful stadium, worth pointing out, because Kevin Warren did have a hand in building that beautiful dome in Minnesota, which I don't know. Is that your favorite venue right now, Dan? You've been to most of them.
Yeah, it is. I got to be honest with you. After coming out of Levi's last week, I was like, man, I forgot how much I like this place. And
yeah,
they do a great job there in terms of the ease of doing your job. That place is amazing at how convenient it is. SoFi is on the list there. A lot of nice places around the league. The newer ones obviously are newer, and I mean, it'll be fun to get back there. We get to go to Minnesota annually, so you kind of have some recency bias because you see it all the time, but it rarely disappoints. The environment is usually electric.
Yeah. What did you get out of Chris Beatty talking about Keenan Allen versus the Vikings today?
So Keenan Allen, the first meeting this year, just 3 weeks ago, 9 catches, 86 yards, a touchdown. That comes a year after he went to Minnesota with the Chargers and had 18 catches, 215 yards in a game up there at US Bank Stadium. There's clearly something about this Brian Flores defense that Keenan Allen is capable of taking apart. And so we asked Chris Beatty about that on Friday afternoon, and he just said, look, like Keenan's got this wisdom and this vision to see things that he can create openings for himself. When this team is presenting all these different pressures and all these different disguises and all these different coverages, Keenan finds the answer and he gets open, and then the football finds him and he produces. And so that'll be really interesting to see if that continues. We talked about Rome Odunze earlier. If Caleb Williams can find, all 3 of his big targets in this game on Monday, they have a better chance of success. But really crazy to look at those numbers that Keenan has put up in those last 2 games against the Vikings.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. And he is, like, I feel like as the year has gone on we have seen the full Keenan Allen, where he's becoming so valuable on third down. Some of the routes that he has run have just been straight up sick. And like, you get it. Like, oh, okay. It was a slow, sluggish, weird start for Keenan Allen this year, but you start to get it. One thing that I just thought was interesting to be reminded of today is Richard Hightower was speaking, because of course DeAndre Carter gone for the year. He's been placed on IR, kind of an emotional thing for Hightower, who just loves all of his players. But Josh Blackwell has been a little bit iffy in practice too. And the Hightower reminded us of the fact that Tyreek Stevenson, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore are all guys that we regularly see out there returning kicks. So their names, if Blackwell can't go, it'll be interesting to see if who's the first name they pull out of that pack, and probably Tyreek Stevenson. I would guess.
I would say it would be Tyreek Stevenson for sure, based on the roles, and so that'd be interesting to see where that goes for sure.
Yeah.
I got two quick things for you. Number one, do you think the mood that you've experienced this week at Haugh leads you to believe that they can dig deep enough Monday to have enough in their tank to pull an upset?
I don't know. I don't know that there's any correlation with any mood that has ever happened out here at Haugh.
I'm just talking about the reserves, just the fuel, because this feels like an exhausted team this week for the first time.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I feel some of that, but I also just know that it's never been, even through the bad stuff, I've never really sensed like a massive personality difference with this team. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I didn't see it exactly the way you saw it in terms of that, Dan, but I'd understand it being that they've lost 7 straight games.
Yeah, they feel exhausted. And then my last little footnote, Jordan Addison, we mentioned him earlier in the podcast, had a really big week last week, 3 touchdowns, huge game against the Falcons. He's got a college teammate that works here at Haugh. His name is Caleb Williams. They were teamed together in 2022 when Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy. It was really cool to hear Caleb's appreciation for what Jordan Addison meant as a receiver to him 2 years ago. Called him one of the best route runners he's ever been around, and said, hey, he's not I think he said he's not a large human, but he goes up and gets the football like he's 6'5". And so kind of cool little footnote on 2 guys that spent 1 season together at Southern Cal, and will obviously both try to be productive in their own ways on Monday night.
Yeah, and I'll actually follow that up with Chris Bate, or was it? I think it was Beatty. No, it was Eric Washington saying today that he thinks Jordan Addison is just another version of Justin Jefferson. That might have been a little hyperbole, but being that he had 162 yards against the Bears last week, I guess I could buy into that at the moment.
It felt like it, right? He felt like another Justin Jefferson 3 weeks ago, and so we'll see what he does on Monday night. I think that the temperatures right now, based on my last check of my phone, are actually going to be a little bit warmer in Minneapolis than they've been in Chicago the last few days. So
really?
Actually going to be getting out of here, flying on Sunday, and going somewhere warmer somehow.
Wow.
Minnesota in December.
Wow. Enjoy lovely, warm Minneapolis, Dan. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. That's going to do it for today's episode. For Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, definitely check out his latest article. You will want to read it. It is well-sourced, and it is very good. So check that out with Weedsy. For our executive producer, the hustling Adam Stadzinski, we appreciate you studs. I am Mark Grote. Thank you for watching and listening to Take the North.
Great talk. See you out there.